But to your point about, censorship and the like total lack of willingness to challenge your own side's narrative, did you just see this Columbia Journalism Review report that came out about Russiagate? Saagar and I were looking at it.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's really long, in-depth. I mean, it's overdue, right? It's like way after the fact. But I think this is one of the first, certainly mainstream, and CJR is as mainstream as they come, mainstream attempts to actually go back through the Russiagate narrative, where it started, how it was sold to the American people, and all of the lies and especially the omissions. And they take a really hard look at the New York Times as kind of the main player in the story. There were other villains as well, but the New York Times was the main player. And they would report something that, they would shade it to look as bad as possible with regards to Trump-Russia connections. They would get some other piece of information that was exculpatory, wouldn't be in the paper at all. And they got all kinds of, millions of new subscribers to their paper who were there to hear this, elaborate tale of Russian conspiracy and the Manchurian candidate and whatever. And the underlying narrative that at least I take away from the CJR report is the New York Times and MSNBC and a lot of other places. They were more interested in feeding that audience what they wanted to hear than actually looking at the facts of what was happening. And you read it, it is as damning as it could be. And listen, the way we were sold the Iraq War was bad enough. Like, that was a travesty. After the fact, they actually did some correctives that here's what we got wrong and we're sorry, whatever. This, they will never admit that they did anything wrong here. They just move forward and pretend like none of it ever happened. And it is astonishing. And then they turn around and wonder, like, why does no one trust us? We just don't get it.
Yeah, well, we have to make laws against disinformation. That's what we have to do. Misinformation and malinformation, all of those are bad. And this way we can control the narrative.
Are you gonna be the one who determines what's fact and what's fiction?
And actually in the piece they were like, the U.S. has the lowest media trust in 42 developed nations. And they're like, yeah, how does that fucking happen?
I think that's true, because I think there's an insanely strong trust in independent media.
You are right. They're pointing to the mainstream media.
These people that are, they're just who they are. You know who they are. And it's possible to do now. You can be a real person. You don't have to be a propagandist or a spokesperson for the state. You can be a real person and tell people what the fuck is going on. Because this is a wild game that other people are playing on our behalf with money that they've gotten from our taxes, where we don't even get a say in what the fuck they spend it on. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it doesn't affect your daily life. You drive to the same place. You say hi to your neighbors. It seems fine, but you're dealing with a fucking destructive empire that has been doing things to other countries that if you saw them, if you were boots on the ground, you would be horrified. If you watched a drone bomb a wedding party in Yemen, if you were a part of something in another country that we're involved in, that our tax dollars have gone to, that we have just written off as being not of concern.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yemen is a great example. I mean, across the board, humanitarian organizations around the world say this is the greatest humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in the entire world. And, we are highly complicit in this through our support of Saudi Arabia. You don't see Yemen flags on people's cars. You don't see the news media talking about it. You don't see them humanizing the children that are starving and dying there. And so, part of the way that the information ecosystem is shaped is what they decide to care about, what they decide to cover, the way they decide to cover it, and what just gets pushed off the page entirely, out of sight, out of mind.
I think there's an important part to talk about with this, that with human beings, when human beings work inside corporate systems, and these systems have goals and everyone's working together, and there's a hierarchy of people and you're not allowed to step out of line, we develop a way of thinking that is almost like, it's a tribal way and it's kind of a religious way. And I'm curious to know how you guys feel about your ability to be completely independent outside of that, and how that's affected the way you think about things. Because for me personally, like, having all these conversations with so many different people about so many different subjects, I'm a different person.
Yes.
Like, I'm a completely different person. It's shaped me so. It's like the most bombarding, overwhelming education that it's like very difficult to process. But if you're in a corporate environment, it's very hard to think independently. It really is. You don't have the time. You don't have the notion. You definitely don't benefit from it.
You don't have the incentive. That's
if
the
you
big one.
speak out, you're fucking penalized. You can lose your job. Just things that aren't even like out of line. Like I remember there was a hockey guy. He was a hockey commentator, and he said that all lives matter, and he got fired.
Holy shit. Yeah. It's like...
It's just like, what an egregious misstep.
Joe,
all lives matter.
You know I got my start in media on MSNBC.
Yes, I know.
So, I mean, am I a different person from those days? God, I certainly hope so.
That's why I wanted to bring it up to you guys.
I go back and look at it. And, some of it I watch and I'm proud of. I focused on a lot of the same issues I do, like labor and economic inequality, economics, things that I really care a lot about, especially on foreign policy, though. Some of that stuff I go back and watch and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cringe. And I just bought into the corporate line. Now, ultimately, shortly before I was let go, I did a monologue when Hillary Clinton was building up to run for president. It was back in 2014. So this was early on. And I did this whole thing that was like, she's sold out to Wall Street. People are going to hate this lady. She's like the terrible candidate for the moment. Please don't run. And I was allowed to say it, right? I delivered my thing. I did it exactly how I wanted to do it. Afterwards, I get pulled into an office and, great monologue, everything's fine. But next time you do any commentary on Hillary Clinton, it has to get approved by the president of the network. Yeah. And think about, I would love to say that I did further Hillary Clinton commentary. There's no doubt about it. But I would love to say that didn't affect me and I was just there to be a truth teller. But listen, I'm a human being. I'm sure I responded to the incentives in that system of like, I don't want to get in trouble with the boss.
For sure.
And that's the way that it works. That's a very blatant example, but oftentimes people know where the boundaries are. They know what they're allowed to say, and so they don't need that direct intervention of censorship. And also, by the way, these people, most of them in cable news, they're not really there because they're talented. They're there because they're reliable purveyors of whatever it is that network wants to purvey. So that's ultimately why they get the job, and they understand the parameters of the task.